Good afternoon, everyone. This is Karen Murphy from WildBlue. This is a Meet the Candidates meeting. Thank you for joining us. Currently, we have 5 of the candidates who have signed up for this webinar. Sima Baker, Lou Vaccarella, Terry Kurth, Roger Lamont, Rick Bennington, and Mr. Crispin is trying to sign in as we speak, in no particular order. We're going to have each candidate give us their 5 minutes, starting alphabetically with Sima Baker. I did distribute to them your questions. Thank you very much. So they will incorporate those questions into their introductory speech. So Sima, you are first.
Okay, can you hear me, Karen?
I can hear you, Sima.
Okay. Hello, I'm Sima Baker, and I live with my husband, Jeff, on WildBlue Boulevard. As many of you know, I am involved in many community activities. I'm currently involved in starting a Leave One, Take One library that will open hopefully in September or October in the spin room. We've had lots of help from both Karen and Roxanne on this project. I've worked on the Master Transition Committee. I've attended various CDD meetings and amenity meetings. I play in the Bocce League. I do social activities. I walk the community in the mornings, and I have a good working relationship with the ICON office staff. My priorities on the Master HOA are enforcing security and monitoring, working with Lee County, restoring and maintaining functioning gates, repairing sidewalks and streets, improve the landscaping and hold costs in line, making sure that the work we pay for is actually completed, and the reconfiguration of the corkscrew entrance before commercial construction, which is currently being revised and under discussion. Many questions were about the wall on WildBlue Lake. Currently, this is not related to the Master HOA. Decisions are made by the CDD and WB residents. Some other questions were very specific and legal in nature. ICON, legal opinions, and our attorneys will explain and manage these issues. My decisions will be based on their input for what's best for the entire community. Another question was regarding a person serving on more than one HOA. I think it's an asset and not a detriment. Many issues are similar in nature or deal with the same vendors. Synergy saves time and money. My strengths are that I admit when I'm wrong and I don't know something. I listen to all sides. I believe in common sense. I'm fiscally responsible and conservative. I play the long game, looking out for what's best for the community in the long run. I'm easily accessible. I'm community oriented and committed to what's best for all. And I'm willing to learn what I don't know. Lastly, for some people who ask for qualifications, I have a Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Wisconsin in Madison, a Master's in Business Administration from St. Louis University, and I'm also actively involved in a total of 3 HOAs and have been on several not-for-profit boards. I own rental properties, so I am involved deeply with HOAs. I appreciate your vote, and I would love to make and keep WildBlue the envy of all of Southwest Florida. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sima. And then we will go to Rick Bennington.
Doing a sound check. Everybody can hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you, Rick.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking time to do this wonderfully entertaining Meet the Candidates meeting, which I think you'll all find enjoyable. I think it's wonderful we have so many people who are interested in running. I think that first and foremost is very positive for our neighborhood that we have that many residents who care to take the time to do this. So thank you to everybody running. It's a compliment to all of us. Myself, my wife and I moved in nearly 2 years ago. We have 2 children, or I should say adults right now. And one of them just recently moved down because they love Southwest Florida so much. So our son recently just moved down here. My daughter, we're trying to get her to move with a grandchild, but that's a work in progress as she can't stand humidity and her hair doesn't agree with that. So we're dealing with that issue right now. But that's a little personal issue with us right now in terms of our children, family situation. My wife and I, we live over on Aquaview Lane, as many of you might know. Currently, I'm serving along with John Buckholz on the Aqua Shore Board of Directors, HOA. I'm also serving on the WB Residents Inc. board in relation to the wall issue and the CDD. I've also been on the WildBlue Master Transition Team with many others, and a lot of them are on this call. John, I, Terry, Lisa Tilson have all served on the governance committee in particular. And also, John and I have put forward our names and we're cleared to run for the CDD board. And we've actually gotten our certificates of election as we're running unopposed for the CDD board. So that will be official on November 5th, representing you all on the CDD. For a lot of new people into the neighborhood, even for some of you that are here, it might be surprising for you to know that there are 6 different boards affecting our neighborhoods right now. We have not 1, but 2 CDDs. We have 1 for WildBlue. We have 1 for Vista. We share a board with the Vista residents on the amenities, which is WildBlue's amenity board. We have 2 masters. We have 1 for WildBlue and we have 1 for Vista. And we also, last but not least, with the smallest budget, is the board I'm serving on currently, is the Aqua Shore Board, which is basically the Pulte properties on the south end of the neighborhood. So there's a lot of boards operating right now, some under a transition, some have already turned over. There's a lot of coordination to be had. In some of our meetings right now, John is taking the initiative to try and pull the board presidents that are elected together in a dialogue, which I think is going to serve us well in the future. Right now, in terms of where we're at on master and what's important on master right now is the transition. The transition teams have put together a very comprehensive plan of how to transition from developer-directed contracts into a resident-owned contract situation where we'll be reviewing all of them. But all the hard work has been done by that transition team to do this turnover. It's very critical everybody understands that. This team, based on that team's work, will not be starting from scratch. So turnover due diligence will continue on an in-process run. Current contracts for landscaping, security, community management have all been reviewed by this team. And the board can pick up that torch from those groups and be able to move forward in a very productive manner reviewing everything. So that's a wonderful thing that transition team's done. And in particular, Roger, thank you for running all that. What we can do right now in terms of what our priorities are is number 1 for that team and what's going to be happening is transition, as I mentioned before. And as part of that transition, one of the critical things at turnover is the engineering team report, which the transition team has interviewed different engineering firms, and you will have a professional engineer reviewing all the physical assets of the master in terms of what they're responsible for. And this is critical at turnover to get back to the developers of anything we need and see as a deficiency or anything we need them to work on to get up to speed as the transition takes place in post-transition. In the immediate term, we have significant needs in terms of review of our financial condition. The transition team has identified that we're at a critical position in terms of our finances and we'll need to be reviewing and managing through those issues. We're at a very close basis in terms of break-even point of what's being collected right now to what's being expended. So part of the review, the contracts, there's going to be a keen eye toward financial management, as there always is, to where we're going to be launching forward the 25 budgeting process and what we need to do on that budget to make sure all our needs are being met and we do that critical financial review. It's critical for everybody to know in terms of, and I'm trying to answer your questions as I go through these things, so I'm trying to keep this to 5 minutes, but it's critical for everybody to know the board's now working independently. The board works in hand with a board, a appointed attorney, which the transition team has identified, and also with the engineer. And of course, ICON. ICON and the attorney will lead us through all the contractual issues and also lead us through the governance of how we maintain and stay within the Florida statute, which is critical right now, as some of you may know, as some of the Florida statutes have been updated and new ones have taken effect as of July 1, as John and I are just being briefed for the Aquashore Board, how that affects us in our daily management in terms of how that's going and how the governance will take place. Another critical priority for the master board as they launch forward is the commercial property, as that property is seeking to add more entrances onto our entrance roadway. And we'll also need to do some reconfiguring on our roads, which all falls under master on the entryway, of how that's going to be laid out. All of it has to be done part and parcel as partnership with the master and with our agreement. And as part of that, if some of you may know, out of the discussions, there's a lot of talk about a traffic light and how the traffic light would be paid for between the River Creek development, the commercial property, and WildBlue Master. So these are critical things right off the bat that they'll be tackling. In terms of other general questions, there were a lot of questions related to the wall, and I can refer you back to both the CDD, and I can also refer you offline to WB Residents, which I am on, and I'm happy to answer any of those questions offline, as that's not an immediate concern, nor does it have anything to do with the board coming on board at this moment. None of that is important as a priority right now with this board. So I refer you back to the CDD for more information on your questions. And in my resume, I've put my personal email and phone number, and any of you offline are welcome to call me on any issues or questions you have on. In terms of key statutes, there was a lot of questions. Again, we refer back to our attorneys for full understanding and interpretation of that. All board members will be required to be certified. We all take classes. John and I have already been through that process and are certified. I believe in the new statute, there are updates to that where members have to be recertified every year. So that is an ongoing issue, and we'll be briefed on that further. Also, there are questions in terms of who the ICON management is. I think we all know Jeff is our general manager there. Karen is over the amenities and master as the CAM. We also know in terms of Aquashore, we have Bella, who's managing Aquashore and managing Vista right now, and she reports into Danielle, which John and I and others on this call have all had ongoing dialogue. And I think that's it in terms of everything I had. I'm just checking my notes, so anything else I had, and I believe that's everything I had. And again, I feel free to reach out to me at any point. Thank you. You can hear me. We can't hear anything.
Yeah. Are we ready for that? Is it John Buckholz is next?
Yeah, I don't know if Karen can hear us, but John's up next, yes.
Can you hear us, John? Because if Karen is out, maybe John can go ahead and start, but maybe there's some questions there too. There he is.
Roger, can you hear us? I can see you. Okay. Don, Lou, can you hear us? I don't see Don or Lou responding. I don't know if they can hear us on the main. I think we can hear you.
Buckholz was there a minute ago and then he's gone.
Yeah. But I don't know if Karen's computer's picking us up. We could talk to each other, but I don't think they hear us in their room.
Yeah, we had John, but I'm not sure why he isn't.
Harry, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Now we
we
can.
can hear you now.
There we go.
I had to go back out. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you, John.
All right, sorry, I had to go back out for some reason.
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, do you want me to start or Karen come back on? You want me to just continue with it, Karen off?
Yeah, I would continue, John.
Yes.
I think they
Okay.
can hear us out there.
All right. Hi, I'm John Buckholz. My wife and I moved here in 2019 into Aquashore Drive. We were one of the first in the first 25 residents in the community. I have been an active president for the Aquashore portion of our community for 2 years. We've been very active. Rick, as Rick has said, he is on the board. We've had great volunteers that have helped us through and has given us a head start on what we need to do and work with the developers and Icon. I was very active in the review of the commercial development up front. I met with the county planner numerous times that I worked through what was necessary in getting additional information as well as getting additional buffering. I talked to the developer directly, and I spent the full day at the HEX meeting in terms of making sure that we could get the best for WildBlue. So I've been on the transition committees, both for the amenities and the master for both transition. Roger did a great job of getting us all together. I continue to work with those and Rick and others in the community on the sound issues that we had and different issues that we've had. In mine to the north was expanding. I went to those board meetings trying to get the county to provide additional mind detection devices and monitoring for WildBlue. So there's been numerous things that we've been all working together on and very successfully trying to move WildBlue in a great direction and protect it from all the things that are occurring around us. What I'd like to address is the multitude of questions. Rick did such a great job of answering them. I don't want to duplicate his answers, but I think that my main concerns here are maintaining the budget. We, in our review, the budget appears to be right on the edge. We are going to have issues with the budget, and we need to follow those and find out where we can cut and where we can maintain things. The different committees made suggestions in the renewal and in changes, and we'll look at those. That information will be sent to the board. We also have to create a reserve account. The reserve account will be for the guard building up front, as well as other parts of our community, the landscaping, the roads, the sidewalks, and the gutters. That's something that I've already done some research on the attorneys and the engineers that we'd be hiring to do that. That's already started. We have names for the board to review and look through that. My third concern is the security, both of the opening and closing of the gates, as well as the speeding that goes along in this community. Again, there was another board that talked about security. We'll look at their information presented to us, and we will work to that end. So those are things that, for me, are the most important right now. So the other thing is I've been involved with the community. I've been at almost to all of the CDD meetings. Rick mentioned that we are now basically will be on the board for CDD at that time in November when we officially will be on the board. I will continue to be at those meetings, continue to look for the best wall that we can get. We're looking at what are the options. We're looking at the costs, and until we get those options done, until we get those costs, until we get a chance to see what the developer wants, there's nothing we can talk about lawsuits or anything that's coming our way. We may be surprised at what they give us, or may be disappointed what they don't give us. There's no understanding of where that is right now. And until we get there, I can't tell anyone what direction we might be going in. There is, I don't believe that two people or one person being on several boards. I've worked on boards before. I've been on condo boards. I've been on a planning board. I've been a founding member of a downtown community board for 23 years. I have never found where there's an obstacle with two people being on several boards. It's actually helpful because you can get updates and information from those people. Just continuing through the questions. I understand the difference between the amenity boards. I don't want to bore anyone. I know Karen and Jeff and Roseanne. I think I know who they are and what they do. I've been dealing with them for 3 years and have had success in working with them. Statute 720, again, because we're on the boards, those are the rules and regulations for homeowners associations. Those are the things that there are people out there that provide us that information from time to time, and it's been very helpful. ICON continuously would recite to us those issues. So we abide by those and we follow them. That's why ICON is there, and that's why we hire attorneys to help us through those issues. Florida's a strange place. It's got all sorts of rules and regulations, particularly since we've gotten 50 new ones. I'm trying to get all of the boards to a common, uh, I guess, teaching session that are given for free around the state and get all of our board members together to listen and hear what these new rules are. And I'll continue to push for that. My past experiences, there's a question here, again, I said condo boards and community boards, but I'm also an architect. And I think as an architect, when we went through transition with Pulte, I did punch lists for the roads, for the sidewalks. We've already gotten that. We do have punch lists and people that spent hours going through the community, putting that together. And we will look to that and we'll negotiate that information with the developers collectively. 617 is basically a not-for-profit statutes. It gives us all the limitations, what a not-for-profit can and can't do, how we can communicate with each other, and different items. It's part of the training that Rick spoke about. We went through those training classes. And as we understand, there'll be maintenance. I, as an architect, have to take 18 hours of continuing education for the different licenses that I have. So it's certainly just a part of my life as a regular basis. Are you supportive committees? Yes. So someone asked about board committees. We can't do this alone. I have to tell you, on Aqua Shore, we have some of the best residents that have volunteered, and they have actually stepped up. And again, they are Aqua Shore, and they are working with us currently right now with Roger. They were on the transition committee, so we've got a good head start. So I firmly believe in community involvement. We're going to have landscaping committees. We're going to have other committees that we need to get feedback and help from the boards. My biggest concern is the reserves. The developers haven't paid for it. This is going to be an increase in our fees. We need to be careful about those. And we need to make sure that we fix the things that are broken right now or get paid for it so we can fix them so that we're not spending reserves quicker than we should. These reserves are supposed to go out 30 years. We're a new community. We should not be going into reserves for the next 15 years. So if we can get these things fixed, it's less money that we'll have to spend later on. So that's what we're actually looking for. Just trying to make sure I've hit on some of these questions. I'm gonna, again, as Rick said, the wall is is directly going to be reviewed by CDD. And we've got, we've got to understand what the developer is going to do. Until that time, we'll wait for that portion of it. But I'd just like to say I'd like to continue my work with the WildBlue community. I've talked to the different members of the other boards on a regular basis. I've talked to John Reese. Unfortunately, John is stepping down from the Vista board, and I look to continue that. I've talked to Steve at numerous times. Roger and I talk on a regular basis. So I hope to continue that and get those meetings together. Roger and I are on an EOC meeting with 2 members from all of the communities on Corkscrew Road that involves police officers, fire, public education, commissioners, and it gives us a wealth of information what's happening around us. So I'm looking to work on those, and I don't want to bore anyone else on all of those things. So I look forward that hopefully I'll be able to continue the work I've done with WildBlue. Thank you. Rick, who's up next?
I believe it'd be Donald. Roger, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can they hear us in Karen's office?
Can someone in the community see if Karen's still alive?
I texted her and she said she could hear everybody else talking. But I told her we tried talking to Donald and Lewitt. They don't look like they can hear us.
He's responding on the Q&A, just so you know.
So they're on mute on their mic, or I don't
No, I'm
understand.
not on mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
can
we
hear
can hear you now.
Okay. So I'm looking for Chris Casa.
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're up, Chris.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. We met at the last in-person meeting that we had. Chris Casa, my wife Tara and I recently moved into WildBlue. We purchased a home on Blue Sapphire, and we moved in, closed in April, moved in approximately May, June. I'm not affiliated with any other boards at the moment. I am a realtor at Sky Coastal Realty, which is we're in the Naples Board of Real Estate. I've got about 20 plus years of corporate experience with brands such as AT&T, Sprint, now is T-Mobile, Apple Enterprise, as well as Salesforce. I've got a vast experience dealing in large negotiated contracts, mostly around automotive in the Michigan market and abroad. So that's kind of where my background is. My passion is real estate. It always has been. My wife and I have owned homes in Bellaterra, as well as the preserve across the street. And we've been looking at WildBlue. Should have purchased probably 3 years earlier, but we made the leap. And the first 60 days, we've been noodling through WCI warranty claims and a litany of stuff that probably wasn't done totally correctly. As well, we've got an erosion problem on the retention pond. We've got several connected homes that we've been working with. Actually, Karen, the CDD, and working with Lennar as far as positioning them to rectify the situation. We actually have confirmation that they will be doing the repair shortly. I believe they contracted a third party to do so at their expense. And with that, some of my skills are kind of come through. Lennar said they didn't have engineering reports. We pull all the stuff up from the CDD file and presented those in a constructive manner. Trying to get consensus and instead of get into an adversarial role with them. But the net, I think the neighbors that are involved will be satisfied. We're still waiting for the work to start, so that's a plus. As far as the statutes, I mean, this is all stuff that we go through in our real estate licensing as far as staying updated on continuing education, fiduciary responsibilities. I looked at the statute 617. It's mostly around avoiding conflict of interest and what have you. So those are things I do on a daily basis. As far as our responsibilities would be, the primary focus is going to be the transition and making sure that the developers, provide everything that from a financial perspective and effort that they're obligated to leave us. And I agree wholeheartedly that we don't want to go into a negative position from a budgetary perspective. I'm not a huge fan of assessments. I think if we govern ourselves fiscally responsible, we should be able to represent the community in a positive light and keep everybody's investments growing instead of, a negative situation. Just looking through the rest of these. As far as the wall, the wall and all that, I think that needs to kind of vet itself out through the current process of the CDD and what have you. But I do fully feel that we should hold the developers responsible, to deliver products that we thought we bought, right? So that's kind of where my head is on that. As far as I think they wanted three priorities. I think the commercial development in the front of the properties are going to be kind of paramount to the beauty of our community and so, elements that are beneficial to us versus detracting. I look at some of the buildings on Ben Hill Griffin, like the Tidewater property, where they had a beautiful entrance to a nice community. Then all of a sudden they've got a bunch of container type buildings there for storage, and it really detracts from that community. I don't want that happening to ours. So I think from my perspective, be conscious to represent the board and be in a collaborative relationship with my peers, and fiscally sound decisions, and have an ear for what the community wants, and that's what our responsibility is. So I'm good there, Karen.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
And up next is Donald Crispin.
Yes, thank you. As I attempted to start out earlier when we had some sound difficulties, my name is Don Crispin. While I have not been familiar with many of you around this community, I have been around since the very beginning, as Mr. Bolshaus has also indicated. In fact, I lived next door at Miramar for 12 years. And before this community was developed, used to take a 2-track off of Alico Road when it was owned. The property was not even owned by Lennar or Cal Atlantic or anybody. It was owned by Alico West, a local developer who sold this parcel to Lennar and the neighboring parcel to Esplanada, and he made a fortune. But I understood then the potential of this community, and I would like to see that through. My wife and I put our deposit down on our lot in Blue Eye Loop in Valentine's Day 2019, as she reminds me. And we watched this community develop, literally. And certain events of recent months and have concerned us enough that I've thrown my name in the hat. I've been a lawyer for 43 years. I've tried cases in 6 states around the country, not just 6 cases, but multiple cases in state and federal courts. I've settled thousands of cases in other jurisdictions. I've argued cases before 6 of the United States Courts of Appeals. There are only 13. I've served previously in another life, and others think that's not important. I think I learned a lot of lessons in that particular instance where I've served on an HOA board in another state in another time, and I like to refer to it as another life because it was a freaking nightmare. But as part of that service, I was the president, and we sued a developer. We sued a major national corporation called Toll Brothers. You may have heard of them. And we sued because it was a condo association for the construction deficiencies that they left behind when they turned over the community. That experience tells me a lot about what we're facing here pertaining to the retaining wall, which none of you, I'm certain, have experienced in prior lives. What it taught me was these are powerful entities. They throw lots of money at their law firms, and they got the best lawyers out there. They also don't want to create an atmosphere that they're going to roll over if a group of residents decides they want to sue them. So that said, we were successful after over 5 years of litigation and over millions of dollars in legal fees in resolving the case, I like to say, in favor of the homeowners. So we're faced with a very similar situation here. I understand that the turnover involves very other important issues. I'm fully aware of those. I'm sure that we've already talked about the different things about reserves, very important, necessary. We've talked about the other common elements that the HOA, the Master Property Association here, is responsible for, including security, including the roads, and the establishment of reserves. But here we've got a very unique circumstance. The majority of the people that are running for this board, our HOA, have also created an independent legal entity, and actually two, that funded a lawsuit. And then they sued on behalf of this very board that they're running for, a number of entities, including the developers, all 4 of them, and 2 engineers, and our own CDD. That said, they did this, however, in contrary to the statutes in Florida as to derivative litigation, without asking whether the HOA itself has any say in it, and without asking, more importantly, the homeowners that live here, all 675 of them, what they want to do, and they filed this lawsuit. So my concern is this: do they actually have legal standing to present such a lawsuit? And I've examined it, and I think not. And don't trust me for that. I've heard lots of people push back on that, say I'm not licensed in Florida, and I'm not offering a legal opinion. Rather, look to what the Vista Board did when they were threatened by a lawsuit by their own membership. They consulted their board attorney as to whether or not they have standing to bring a lawsuit against the CDD and the developers for remediation of the wall. They were given a legal opinion that said, Mr. Reese informed me himself, that they do not. So they elected to decline in face, even though their own membership was threatening to sue them, should they not file a lawsuit. Don't even accept that as fact. Please look at the motions that have been filed in the litigation that's now pending in Lee County by the various developers that say this case needs to be dismissed because there is no standing of a master property association to sue for damages to a retaining wall that it neither owns or controls. It doesn't now own or control the wall, nor will it ever. But that said, the same group of people that filed the suit, funded the litigation, sought contributions for, I'm told, up to 200 people, which is not the majority of this community. That's less than 30%. And they want to say that we're going to proceed and have the developers come to the table. Well, that's almost laughable because, in fact, not only have they not come to the table, they won't come to the table because they understand the law that this association shouldn't have any role whatsoever in suing for these damages because they never owned or controlled it. That said, there's going to be an effort by these candidates, because almost all of the candidates, other than myself and 1 or 2 others, have either been officers of the corporations that have supported this litigation, are now seeking to become board members. And I would ask each of them, if they have a position as to whether or not the Master Property Association should sue and fund their lawsuit. I haven't heard one candidate respond to that question because I think I know the answer. Of course, that's what they intend to do because they're predisposed to file suit against these people. Now, the proper approach ought to be, the proper approach is what I've heard Mr. Bushels and Bennington refer to. The CDD is the only board, the only entity that has any authority to determine what is the appropriate remedial measure and who's going to pay for it. And if they decide to sue the developers, so be it. But the master shouldn't fund that particular lawsuit. I'm not anti-enhanced wall, and that's the other issue. There's been no consensus whatsoever developed by any of these candidates, any of the ink people, as I refer to them, who have filed this lawsuit, who are going to look for funding once they get on this board and are seated. There has been no consensus as to what the community is really looking for. Do they want an enhanced wall or do they not? Do they want just a repair of the existing prior wall or not? Do they want the developers to pay for everything, or are they willing to contribute something if they get this or that? None of these conversations has been developed. And I think as a board member of a master property association, based on my prior experience, which has nothing to do with this community, I know I'm being criticized because I am not on a committee here and I haven't done a lot here, but my prior experience lends me to say that you have to develop consensus. If you don't, you're not going anywhere. And it's been a very divisive topic in this community, as we well know. In fact, a lot of people will ask me, was I part of the anonymous emails blast that went out? Of course I was. My primary concern with that, I didn't write it, I didn't author much of it, but I was concerned about the following issue, which a lot of people, frankly, aren't aware. And that is our present declarations state the following. If the Master Property Association were to engage in litigation, it requires a 66 2/3 majority of the membership to approve. That's the standing rule of our present declarations. However, those same declarations go on to say that any provision of our declarations can be amended and is a very low bar. All that's required to amend or eliminate a provision is to have a duly noticed meeting, a special meeting, or an annual meeting with the actual language that you wish to amend or waive or eliminate. And that amendment will take place once a majority of the members at that meeting vote and consent. That means, in effect, that less than 30% of our community can adopt whatever is being proposed by the seated board, provided it was duly noticed. That's not 66 2/3 of the majority of the membership. So given the history that the group that's running for these boards is seeking seating at the master board, do you think it's any beyond pre-adventure that in fact they're not going to take those next steps? I would like a promise that they're not, because I think we should know that now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Don. Up next is Terry Kurth. Terry, you there?
I'm here. I'm here. In the essence of time, I think, according to the next speaker, he probably figures that the 3 or 4 of us that are part of the WildBlue resident group would all be voting together anyhow. So I really don't need to go through a bunch of that, but I want to give you a little bit of my background and where my leadership and stuff is shown. I'm from the Madison area. Originally, we spend about half our time there and about half down there, down at WildBlue. We moved in 2 years ago. Soon after, within a month, so we had that issue. In the meantime, though, let me give you a little bit of background. I'm the father of 4, grandfather of 11. As I stated, we're here part-time. I think it's great that many of the board members would be year-round people, but I think I would also be able to represent the others in a quality way for those that are not here all the time. And I think that a person or two should also have, that should be represented on the board. My background, I'm 71 years old, which hopefully has given me lots of experience. I've been in business for 40 some years, have about 500 employees, a company that my son runs, a whole series of franchises. So we've had, a lot of decision making, obviously, along the way. I've been on the board of visitors of the UW Ag and Life Sciences College. I have been president of our national association. I have been by 2 trade magazines. Each of them have named me Man of the Year over the years. I think, why is that important? I'm not here to brag about it. It's showing that there's respect and there's leadership that have come, or you don't get those kind of awards. So at any rate, that should give you enough of the background. But what's more important than all of that to you as homeowners is, who cares about that? Okay, shows that I've had some leadership and things like that. But it's kind of like, what have you done for me lately? And that's where I feel that I have come forward for this community. This is in an incubation stage, really. We're in an extremely important time right now. And you're going to have experience. I think the other thing is we need to be pragmatic. You have to have some people with passion. That doesn't mean to be too wild out there or anything, but I think that we have shown, even with the WB residents group, we do our homework. We are the ones that got engineering firms and everything there that really started this. I just need to answer Mr. Crispin here for those of you listening, because I think the others have covered. Yes, I'm after financial security. We're like new parents right now. We have to be sitting here and taking this young child, meaning the WildBlue community, and bring it forth and make sure that it's done in the proper way. And one of the things that we're going to have to do, some talk about a divided community. Well, I don't feel it's that divided. When you walk around, you talk to a few people, I would challenge anybody to say that there's more than 40, 50 people that really feel that our actions of trying to move forward and literally plant a flag in the sand so that we can, that's what I'm doing. It's a derivative action so that we can sit and put a holding action here. In the meantime, we have gone and raised private funds, not out of the homeowners group. We've private funds on everybody's behalf here to go out and let's find out. We got a engineer out of Milwaukee, and he is somebody that deals with this all the time. He's an expert. And I'll get into Mr. Crispin's background. He's a marine engineer. He's not an engineer. I'm sorry, a marine attorney. We've out and found attorneys that deal in real estate and land ownership and this type of thing. After doing some real homework, we feel we found them. As to, they're going for the dropping of the suit. There's all kinds of positioning to go after dropping suits. It's all part of the positioning, But here's where we're at. And this was not brought up, even though we've talked about it when we've sent out letters. Right now, our attorneys are in talks with the attorneys from Lennar as well as the CDD. So let me tell you, that wouldn't have happened without our actions. So let's talk just for a minute about why we would do that, because life and decisions is risk and reward. So I'll be honest with you, we may have to either, past it, eventually, hopefully we get control of CDD board. We may have to do an assessment. Don't know how much, but let's say hypothetically, $3,000 over a couple of years or something. And what'll happen is with that, we potentially, when you look at it on average, we'll probably save $80,000 to $100,000 because, again, this isn't a $5 to $10 million fix. And some would say just throw it back the way it is. Those engineering reports, not only ours, but the one that was hired by the CDD board, both said designed improperly, put in improperly, it's not right. So to go do it, the essence of insanity, as we know, is to try to do the same thing over again, expect a different result. It cannot happen that way. So we are going to go, and right now we're waiting, as I think Mr. Buckhold said, we're waiting to hear back. We should hear back by this next month. And there'll probably be one of three options, and it'll be decided by the CDD board, not us. But I can just about guarantee you it's going to be $20 to $30 million. That's my guess. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's less. But more so than that, our attorneys are talking. So, and as I said earlier, that wouldn't happen if they didn't think we had a case. Sure, they're going to go and try to get it dismissed, but that isn't the end of it. Then we have it once we get control, you know, with the HOA, and then if push comes shove, we'll have control eventually of the CDD. The downside is the delay. The upside is we may be saving you $80,000 to $100,000 per household over the life of that bond. So I don't know about you, but if I went to Las Vegas and they said $3,000 or something here, and with all of the information we have from the attorneys, as well as the engineering report, if I knew that it was going to go 100,000 or in reverse, save me, I think it's a no-brainer. So, and fortunately, and to address the situation on, gee, we don't have the majority. It's my understanding, and I think Karen could probably tell you that their history with boards, there's probably 30, maybe 40% that actually vote. And as Mr. Crispin said, we have 30% that have donated to us. Okay? We have had public meetings and people have shown up and they're supportive. This group, I don't think has ever called for a meeting. And the reason being is that they don't think they get many to show up. I certainly don't. So we feel absolutely solid that this thing right now of moving forward like we are putting forth. And I apologize that I've had to sit here and spend time clarifying this. But as the leader of this, someone with lots of experience that has gone out and hired a lot of successful people in his day, I can't guarantee you're going to get a win. And this case could be dismissed, but we have the options. And I know by doing nothing, we're losers. I mean, big time financially. So at any rate, enough of that. So where do we go from there? As I said, it's a incubation stage. You have to have some pragmatic, positive thinking people that can work. I would love to have Mr. Crispin and some of the others that are negative, love to have them involved on a committee. We want a big tent. We want to get by this thing and we want to get together. And it just seems like a microcosm of our country as a whole, where there's just divided feelings. But I've done this before. I've brought people back together and I have made sure that the ultimate result wins more than loses. And that's the thing. We have one chance at getting this community off on a good start. And we're the leadoff batter. I mean, this board will be the leadoff batter, and it's going to be very important. We aren't going to get it all done. We're going to have some absolute hurdles in the way. We're going to have some things that there's going to be disruption that not everybody's going to believe. But again, myself and others, we don't live in a hidden world behind the internet. We don't live, sending out an anonymous letter. We have had our names, our emails, and all that on publicly. And I guess if that's the type of person that you want and should have, I think, on, then you know who you should vote for. So the others, as I said, have covered the other notions very well. It may sound like I have a closed mind. I promise you, I do not. But I am a pragmatist, and I make sure that I'm going to do everything in my power to get this train on the right track as it moves forward for the betterment of the community of all. So again, I apologize for talking more on one subject, but I am done now, and I would sincerely appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And up next is Roger Lamont, our board member representative. Go ahead, Roger.
Hi, good evening, everybody. As you know, my name is Roger Lamont. My wife, Carol, and I moved to WildBlue in March of 2021. We are full-time residents in WildBlue, and I think that's important. Originally, we are from Michigan, and we came to Florida by way of California and then Nevada, following our grandchildren who live on Sanibel. My past experience includes serving on 2 HOA boards and in local government for 12 years in Michigan. My career of over 30 years, I was in retail operations management, so I had a lot of experience, and I had up to 700 employees and 4 stores under my direction. So in that career, I worked a lot with strategic planning, communications, profit and loss, and day-to-day operations. When I was elected to the WildBlue board in March, I started to serve on the transition committee, and so I'm the only resident board member right now. With the help of the transition committees, we have worked to facilitate a smooth transition from developer controlled to a resident controlled board, making recommendations for improving our community. And I think that's important. Our community is beautiful. We want to make it even more beautiful. I want to thank each and every committee member from the bottom of my heart for their dedication and hard work. Everybody took their roles and went to work so hard. I am so grateful. The talent and expertise that everybody did while walking the 17 miles of roads, looking at curbs, doing infrastructure, flying a drone over the guardhouse to look at the roof. I mean, and safety and security team went above and beyond with recommendations. So thank you so much for all of that. My only hope is that many of the transition team that had that passion will keep that passion and serve into the board of the future, no matter who's on the board. As your current and resident board member, I've also worked closely with Icon and Lennar to take care of a few things that seem to have been overlooked. The mailbox canopy in Blue Eye Loop, for instance, was on the plans, off the plans, and never completed. I brought that to Lennar's attention and is now completed. A few other projects that are in the works with the help of the transition committee, such as the mailboxes in Aquashore, that's still project yet to be done, as well as additional speed limit signs throughout our community. I'm happy to say that through continued conversations with the FPL, hours and hours on the phones, last week, 109 streetlights in WildBlue were straightened that were that crooked since Ian, almost 23 months ago. If elected, my top priorities are fiscal responsibility. As was previously stated by other candidates, we won't be flush with cash in the bank as we move forward through the end of the year, and we have to be very cognizant of that as we look at what we need to get done and do it quickly. Also, improve security and transparency and governance. Through town halls, we need to get every resident's feedback, not a supermajority, not 2/3. My interest is in representing the community as a board member. And I hold that as my fiduciary responsibility. That's actually stated in the Florida Sunshine Law 720. We must represent the whole community and accept those results as we are their representatives. So with that being said, I can move on to the questions. I have a few of them here that many of them were answered, and I'll go on with that. So what do you think are critical items? I said fiscal responsibility, security, transparency. What about the commercial property the discussions that are going on. There has been proposals. John Buckholz has been involved with Lee County, but to my knowledge, no discussions have occurred between WildBlue and the commercial property developer. When we transition at the end of the month, I am told we will, I'm not going to say we will have, I am told we will have the deed to the roadways from the guardhouse up to the right of way for Corkscrew. So that will become the new board's discussion as to what can the commercial property owner do, what will it cost him, what contribution he will make to the future traffic light that's going on at our intersection that GL Homes and the commercial property triggered. WildBlue did not trigger that. And as I am told, WildBlue has made its minimum contribution to that traffic light, so hopefully we don't have to make any more contributions to that. Where have you been involved in WildBlue as a board member? Some of the Icon staff, of course, it's Karen, Roxanne, and Jeff. Thank you for all your hard work. Can you explain the relationship between all the boards and everybody? I think open communications is the best way to explain that. If somebody has something on their mind, I think it needs to be said face to face. Yes, I know how special assessments get approved. Does anyone see an issue with a person serving on 2 or more boards simultaneously? There is a potential for conflicts there, and I think that falls under the fiduciary responsibility of that person. And if there's a potential conflict, it could cause a problem, but I'm not saying it would. What about boards working between themselves? They have to negotiate, they have to talk. Is there a process for a board member to recuse themselves from an issue? And that's under 720.311. It's fully explained there. They talk about fiduciary responsibility, HOA boards, WildBlue conditions, fiscal responsibility. I think it's important that we hold town halls. We need to hear in-person feedback. I think that the last time I looked on this right now, we have currently 70 people out of 670 on this Meet the Candidates forum. And I mean, that's nice to have 70. It's more than we had when we had the last Meet the Candidates, but it is not sufficient. You know, we have a community that is about 50% snowbirds. We have to find a way to get people involved if they want to be involved. And I think that's imperative. Because you hate to have these people come back in October, November, and December and find they can't get in because we changed something in security. But what else? The retaining seawall, that seems to be a hot topic, and it always has been a hot topic. The seawall decision is a CDD decision. Are you in favor of pursuing legal action against the developer? This would not have been my first choice. And in regard to the HOA becoming involved in any way with legal funding or involvement, I believe the HOA should not be involved in any way. It should be CDD versus whoever they make their role. And honestly, I think all the decisions should be made before November 5th when WildBlue residents get on the CDD board to avoid any potential conflict of interest. What are your thoughts of the illegal gate remaining open on weekdays? It should be closed after turnover, and I'm meeting with Greg this week to discuss that. That covers that part. So as we move forward to a new board, whether I'm elected or not, I have put together, with the tremendous help of the transition committees, I put together a binder of what board priorities should be as they move in, and whether they use it or not, it certainly, I think, would be helpful to get the board off the ground running and moving forward. It's like first order of business would be to elect officers, hire a legal firm, hire a CPA firm, hire a reserve study firm. WildBlue entrance from Corkscrew, discuss access to the commercial property, traffic light, negotiate with GL Homes and commercial property. I've already said that, but I think there's a potential for funding from the commercial developer when they want to cut into our roadway and make new traffic cuts into our center island, as well as going forward annual maintenance and their share of paying taxes for that right away. And certainly right away, I think we should discuss improved security, residents only at Alico, and QR codes should expire that day or within 24 hours. I think we have to do something about that. Meet with Ramco to implement security changes, meet with Sunny Grove to document fulfillment of contract. There are many, many items, if you read the contract thoroughly with Sunny Grove, that appear to be, I want to call it maybe just missed. And I think if there was a board representative or a board committee in charge of Sunny Grove to maybe walk a section a week to help Sunny Grove out, I think that's what would really, I don't think they're a bad company. And when I talk to other HOA managers, I'm hearing some stories that kind of make Sunny Grove sound really good. So I think we should give them a chance to move forward. So that's pretty much sums up my opinion and thoughts. So thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Roger. And I'm gonna go to Lou Vaccarella and then Joanne Leonardi. We're getting
Hey,
short on.
Karen.
Yeah.
Karen, it's Joanne. I'm gonna have to drop off in less than 5 minutes, so.
Wanna give her, oh, Lou said you can have her 5 minutes. You can have your 5 minutes, Joanne. I'm sorry. Lou said, go ahead.
Okay, just because I'm traveling and I'm calling from
No worries. Go right ahead.
a phone booth, so I apologize. I didn't mean to break in. Sorry, Lou.
No problem.
So first of all, Joanne Leonardi, I am a full-time resident in WildBlue. I moved here in August of 2021. I am retiring in December, so one of the reasons I am running for the board is I'll have a little extra time. I do travel a lot for work, so I'm in the Chicagoland area as we speak, but wanted to make sure I was part of the Meet the Candidates. My sister and I are both in WildBlue, so my membership within the board, I have an extra incentive to make sure that the community that we're representing is obviously represented in the best way possible. I'm not going to go through all these questions because, in fairness to Lou, I want him to have some opportunity to speak. I know some of them have been answered very effectively by those that have already answered them, whether it was Rick or John or Roger or anybody else. But what I can tell you is that I have been in the retail community for many, many years. And I think that I've also been the president of an HOA before. I'm in the Chicagoland area. So I do have some HOA experience. I do think the number one responsibility that this board has is a fiduciary responsibility to the community that they serve. And that fiduciary responsibility involves a lot of different aspects. I was on the part of the transition team that worked and helped Roger and the team to gather information to help for the board that comes on board. So kudos to that whole transition team. I think everybody did a fabulous job. But I do think the priority is a fiduciary responsibility to do the right things for the betterment of the community, and that's the community in whole. Going through transition with another community before, everybody is not gonna be 100% pleased with every decision that a board makes. It's just the nature of what it is, but we have to make the right decisions that benefit the majority of the community or the community as a whole. I think safety is an extremely important part of the community. I think eyes were open during the transition. So Lou, thank you for you and your committee's team on the safety portion. But I do think that there was a lot of things uncovered. So I think we do need to take a look at that. And a lot of the work is going to be on the transition work. This is going to be hard. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy. And there's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to take, to Roger's point, working with the community to solve some of the things that we need to solve, working with the developers and working for those things that we need to work with. I did take a little offense, no offense, Don, but to the assumption that, you knew how some of us would feel or how we would vote or how we would our position on the board. I don't think that is the truth. I think that the board is and it is a CDD matter at this point. So I'm not going to sit and answer any questions on that until I understand more of the facts. I think to me, that's what's going to determine going forward. So please don't assume that all of us that are running for the board, just because we may live in Aquashore or we may be a part of the Aquashore community, which I am, and I have been involved very much with John in the past as we turned over for the Pulte community, but please don't assume that, you know how we feel. I will continue to support the WildBlue HOA and the community, whether I'm on the board or not on the board, because I think it's a beautiful community that we live in. I'm looking forward to trying to be more a part of this community and trying to make the best decisions that make it the community that we all want to be in and that we're all proud of. And I think that's what we all want to do. And again, I'm rushing this a little bit because unfortunately I'm out of time because I'm supposed to be at a dinner right now. And I also want to give Lou an opportunity to speak. And I do know that we're over, but I just wanted the opportunity to introduce myself. I look forward to working on the board if I get voted in, hopefully. If not, I'm still going to work with the boards or work on any committees that the board needs me to work on to help make this community the beautiful, vibrant, and wonderful community that it already is. So with that, Lou, I guess I'm turning this over to you. Karen, thank you for letting me jump in. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush this, but unfortunately I'm traveling. So, and I'm on Central Time, so I appreciate the change.
No worries, Joanne. Thank you for popping in. So last but not least is our friend Lou Vaccarella.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. I believe most of you have read my application that was submitted, as well as my resume. In applying for this position, my history as president of the Miller Place, New York, and Dutch Creek Estates, which is in Illinois, homeowners associations, are very important factors. Issues were continually raised regarding home issues. We also had resident and non-resident car traveling issues, as well as municipality issues, which were investigated, reviewed, and resolved. Moreover, our homeowners association dues were continuously reviewed and in some cases reduced. And I bring it up because, again, this is based upon my experience on a homeowner side of the equation. And we move forward now that as an attorney, I was also vice president, chief litigation officer, and I oversaw a number of specialties, including construction defect, architects and engineers, mass litigation and toxic tort. And I likewise work with litigation parties to resolve issues in a reasonable and timely fashion. I bring that up because, again, as an attorney, my background, many years, has given me a lot of information in terms of what to do, how to do it, and also in terms of working with people, in terms of either on the pro side or the con side, that at the end of the day, it's the best way to go forward. And that is to reach out, get details, work together, and move on. Also, I am a resident of WildBlue on WildBlue Boulevard, and on a security committee, which I've been working with Roger Lamont. We reached out to Ramco, as well as local police officers, to discuss speed issues coming off of Alico, as well as WildBlue Boulevard. I made it a point in my discussions initially that I think we should reach out to the police department because of my past experiences, even on the homeowners association side in Illinois. I also reached out to the local police department chief and said, you know something, can you come to one of our meetings and be available to discuss what you do, how you do, why you do it, and be available to answer questions on behalf of our residents. And I think that's an extremely important factor. As I said before, we did it here. I reached out to the local police department, and I also participated in a meeting with a homeowners association representative of Esplanade, who referred us to the Collier County police representative on the issue of speed limit controls. And as you may all be aware, we did have recently speed limit control sign in our area. And we're also working on, and Roger's working on it too, with respect to the placement of signs, of speed signs in our area. And we do have to make it a major, major point because it's an important factor for the safety of our residents in this community. Okay? Even as president of the Wading River Fire Department, which I was, the fact is that resolutions cannot and should not be done on an individual basis, but rather proper investigation and joint discussion and community agreements on a majority basis. That becomes a major, major factor. And again, even as president and chief of the fire departments in Miller Place in Long Island, we work together. And again, among us, we always reached out to our community for further discussion and further agreements. Okay, so I don't want to go any further on this in terms of the detail has already been provided. Many of the issues that have come up with respect to the issues in terms of the walls in our waterways, that's become a major issue. And I think as all the representatives and most of the representatives who previously spoke detailed that there are going to be issues going forward. And there's no doubt in my mind that we have to work together and get this issue resolved in a much more positive way. My goal has been and will always be to be fair, reasonable, and respectful. And respectful not only to obviously ourselves, but also to our community, because money is a major factor. And to just summarily go out and say we're going to pay X amount of dollars without knowing why, when, where, and how is not the way to go. So again, being part of this association, being part of this committee, I would most appreciate it. And again, I would work with everyone going forward on that. And based upon my background and experience, my hope is that it's going to be a factor, a favorable factor in going forward. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Lou. Hi, it's me again. I want to thank everyone for coming to this meeting. I know it was a little difficult. We had some technical issues, but that happens all the time. I've had a few questions regarding the election. So you've all opted in to receive an electronic ballot. It will go out August 15th. It will have all the candidates on there along with their resumes. You will vote for 5 members. The top 2 vote getters will serve for 2 years, and the other 3 will serve for a year each. If you do not get an email on the 15th of August, please shoot me an email. You may not be on the voters list. It may have been kicked back by your email. So August 15th, they go out at 8 a.m. So if you don't get anything, let me know, and we can send you a link to that election. I don't really have any other questions. I think that the candidates really did well. Thank you all again for attending. Thank you for the candidates. What we want is more involvement, for volunteerism. It works best for the community when everyone's involved. And thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen.